In 1914, Franz Kafka began writing a novel called The Trial. The story begins with a man named Josef K. One morning, he is arrested. No crime is explained. No charges are presented. No rules are revealed. Yet everyone around him behaves as though the process makes perfect sense. Josef K spends the rest of the story searching for answers. He questions officials. He follows procedures. He seeks explanations. But every answer generates new uncertainty. Every explanation creates new contradictions. Every door opens onto another corridor. The harder he searches for clarity, the further clarity retreats. Eventually, the search itself becomes the prison. More than a century later, Kafka's world feels strangely familiar. Not because reality has disappeared, but because many people increasingly feel trapped inside systems they no longer understand. A growing sense that something important is happening, yet nobody can fully explain what. A growing sense that the harder we try to understand events, the more elusive understanding becomes. And when confusion becomes chronic, something profound begins to happen to the human mind. Psychologist Robert Hare spent decades studying psychopathy. What fascinated researchers was not merely aggression, it was the ability to manipulate perception, to destabilize another person's sense of reality, to create confusion, contradictory messages, mixed signals, promises followed by reversals. A person remembers an event, another person insists it never happened. The memory remains, the denial remains. Reality begins to split. Which version is true? The objective is not always to make someone believe a lie. Often the objective is something more subtle. To weaken confidence in perception itself, to make orientation unstable. And once orientation becomes unstable, the mind begins searching for coherence, trying to restore a picture of reality that no longer fits together. Every contradiction becomes a clue. Every clue produces new interpretations. Every interpretation generates new uncertainty. The loop begins. Attention narrows. The search intensifies. The person becomes increasingly occupied by the attempt to make reality coherent again. Not by certainty, not by understanding, but by the hope that the next answer will finally make everything make sense. Yet clarity remains just beyond reach, because the loop keeps producing new contradictions. And the cost is not merely emotional, it is energetic. Energy that could be used for action becomes redirected toward interpretation. Energy that could be used for creation becomes redirected toward decoding. Energy that could be used for building a future becomes redirected toward reconstructing the map. Gradually, something else begins to happen. Action slows. Decisions become harder. The person hesitates, waits, searches for one more clue, one more explanation, one more answer. The answer that will finally resolve the uncertainty. But the uncertainty remains, not because the person is weak, but because confusion itself has captured attention. And attention is one of the most valuable resources a human being possesses. Eventually, the prison no longer resembles a prison. There are no bars, no chains, no locked doors. Only a mind trapped inside an endless process of interpretation. A mind that cannot stop searching. This pattern can emerge beyond individual relationships. Consider the Vietnam War. Millions of people disagreed about it. They supported it. They opposed it. They marched. They protested. But they generally understood what they were responding to. The map was clear enough for action. Many contemporary conflicts feel different. Objectives shift. Narratives change. Enemies become partners. Partners become adversaries. Interventions become occupations. Occupations become withdrawals. The story changes faster than people can process it. Contradictory explanations multiply. Interpretation itself becomes part of the conflict. What happens when entire populations begin searching for hidden meanings behind every event? When every explanation competes with another explanation? When understanding reality becomes a full-time occupation? Perhaps the modern citizen increasingly resembles Kafka's Josef K, not because he lacks information, but because information alone no longer provides orientation. And this brings us to Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." A why is more than a goal. It is a compass, a direction, a stable point from which action becomes possible. Before a person can move forward, they must know where they stand. Before a person can act, they must possess some sense of direction. Before a person can create, they must possess some sense of orientation. Without orientation, the why begins to dissolve. And when the why dissolves, agency begins to weaken. Perhaps this is the hidden cost of confusion. Not that it blinds us, but that it captures attention, consumes energy, interrupts orientation, and weakens the agency required for action. The opposite of confusion is not certainty. The opposite of confusion is orientation, a stable enough relationship with reality to move forward. Because before human beings can change the world, they must first know where they stand within it. But perhaps the most disturbing question is not what confusion does to human beings. The most disturbing question is this: what if disorientation can become a strategy? What if the battle is not simply over information, but over humanity's ability to make sense of reality itself?